what does fatherhood mean in life? What does fatherhood mean? And what does being a firearms owner and practitioner, competition shooter, instructor, what do these things, self defense, self sufficiency, what do they contribute to fatherhood, and what does is there any drawback at all? I'm really curious to hear the thoughts of my guy Memphis Beach. He's a lot of things. A student of the game. I'm going to say he's definitely that. Um, Competition shooter. If you followed him at all on his YouTube channel, you know that he is indeed that. A YouTuber, gun tuber, content creator, absolutely. Uh, and he's a recent dad in the last few months. I'm sure. I think that's apparent. I think people know that. I hope I'm not putting his business out there, but we are going to talk about that. And I'm Costly Conversations. This is Aaron of Costly Conversations. You can find me everywhere on the internet at Armed Atlas. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking with my guy Memphis. We're going to be going over like all these interesting like ideas of like what is fatherhood, like what is fatherhood, right? And that's not it's not a hard answer or a hard question to answer, excuse me. But I think depending on who you ask, you're going to get different results. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. If you're following on YouTube or podcast, like, follow, subscribe, rate, all those things. But let's just jump right into it. Memphis, good to have you on, my brother. Thank you. Thank you for coming on, man.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm just going to make a quick tweak to the connection. It's going to have probably a little bit of lag, but we should be good. And sorry, I'm like breathing heavy into the mic. So for those who don't
It's
really,
all good.
for those who don't really know who you are or what you do, would you mind telling just people kind of like who Memphis Beach is on the internet, at least?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so um, I, f- I think I first started shooting back in the Marine Corps. I served for 9 years, and that's really where I got a lot of fundamentals. Um, and then when I got out, I went back home to Memphis, Tennessee. That's where I'm from, so that's why people call me Memphis. And you can't spend too much time in Memphis without encountering some of the crime that's there. Our crime rate is twice that of Chicago and three times that of Los Angeles. So I saw an opportunity to, use my particular set of skills to start firearms instruction, start training seriously, and start competing.
Okay. So for for the I guess for the record, you did start a YouTube channel eventually. When was that? Because that's kind of how I know you is through the YouTube thing.
Yeah, so I think I really got serious about it about 3 or 4 years ago. I threw up a couple of YouTubes that I ended up deleting because, I just wasn't happy with them. I think that I did that like maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I did a couple of holster reviews. I didn't really like the product. I wasn't satisfied with it. Um, I shifted over to more like training oriented and concealed carry oriented content about 3 years ago, and right now we're above we're over 7,000 subscribers, so doing okay there.
Yeah, I mean that's actually really cool. Like you start a thing, you put some work into it, you start to, I guess, focus on honing your skills. I know early on you said you weren't happy with it, and I think all of us, if we look at any of the body of work that we've done, whether it's like an online media thing or otherwise, you would go back and say like, hey, you know what? My early stuff either wasn't that good or I didn't have the right work ethic here or there. All the, there's even if I go back to not last week's, but like a video that I did like 3 weeks ago, I'd be like, I could have done so much better. I really skimped out here, or I didn't do this or that. And, well, I just want to take a brief moment to just recognize everybody who's tuning in with us live. If you're on the podcast side, please join us live. We like to go live on Sundays and record live with the best possible situation so that you guys can enjoy it after the fact on podcast. But this is, a live show. So thank you guys. I see you, Guns of Barbecue, Refrigerator, and Reps. So I'm going to ask you just a fun question, and then we'll dive into some, I guess, more serious topics. What would you say is your most successful video so far on YouTube? Because there's always that one or two or three that kind of do kind of well, and the rest are not like outliers in the sense that it's like different, but it's like, okay, these are for me and those are for y'all.
About 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I did a holster video just on some things that I picked up along the way about how I'm able to conceal on my body. And right now that's at 150,000 views. The biggest question that I got in the comments section was, how do you sit down as a big guy carrying appendix? And I did a follow-up to it and basically just, hey, this is how I do it. And, that video has about, I think is right there at 150,000 views. By far, the two most successful videos I've ever done. I don't have anything else that's anywhere close to that successful.
Yeah, I guess so many things are just coming to my mind, and we're just going to keep it real costly and ask. So why do you think people were so drawn to that video / line of questioning? Because that's kind of an interesting question. It's like, okay, well, I'm carrying a gun. I know a lot of big guys, including people that are in my own family who carry guns, who are like, I can't carry because I got a gut. I'm not going to do this and that. And maybe they should watch your video to see if maybe it is possible for them. But ultimately, that's a big question, even for me, who, lately I've been struggling with my weight, like if I'm being for real. It can get a little funny when you're trying to sit down if you're not positioned right and you don't have all the right accoutrements with your holster. But why do you think people were so drawn to that particular line of questioning, whether it's a search related thing or an algorithm thing, or what's your thought process?
For a lot of folks, the first time they're going to see your video is just from the thumbnail. If you can't get them on the thumbnail, they're not going to click. And most of the video YouTube channels and most of the video content that a lot of holster makers have, it doesn't really speak to a wide range of people. Usually you have, and I'm just going to be blunt, usually you have some skinny white dude, and he's talking about, how his holsters are better than everybody else's. And, that's all good, right? But there's a lot of folks out there that, may not be able to relate to that. And so if that thumbnail doesn't look like me, then I'm probably not going to click on that video. So I think that's what happened there.
So do you think it had anything to do with at all that this is maybe a prevalent line of questioning in the gun community, where there's a lot of guys who are not like washboard abbed, if there's a better way to say it, like they don't, like you said, they're not the skinny guy, but there's a lot of, let's be really frank. I'm just going to cut through all the cheese. In America, we all kind of struggle with being on the bigger side, and it's not for a lack of trying in the sense that nobody tries to be as big as we are. Like it's sugar is just loaded into everything. A lot of us, it's, we inherited the lifestyle from our parents. So it's like, okay, let's try to break out of it. Let's try to do better for our kids. And maybe we can talk about that a little bit in regards to the children's side, because I've certainly seen it in regards to raising my girls. Do you think that in the gun community, this is something that we really like? We want to carry in a certain way. We're not in a position where it just happens naturally, because I'm just going to say probably like half the people in the gun community, maybe like 65%, maybe 70, are are slightly above where they want to be, at least, if not grossly above. And when I say grossly, not in a mean way, but just the textbook definition of grossly.
Yeah. The way we talk about weight in America is really kind of toxic,
Yeah,
and the way we talk about guns in America is kind of toxic as well.
I'm
So
I'm
when
curious
you,
to break through the break like really get into this with you because I want to hear what you have to say.
yeah. So um, uh, we'll talk about the weight thing first because
Let's
that's
do
one
it.
thing that really kind of hit me. So a lot of us oversimplify things as far as the weight is concerned. We think
Yeah,
that, okay, if I work out more and eat less, I'm going to be okay. But what I'm learning now, some of the people that, that I've hired to help me is that, it's not just about what you eat, and it's not just about what you do. Um, there's a lot of there's a lot of food that doesn't really react well to your body, and that might be because of the preservatives, that might be because of the additives, or it might just be because of the way you are, the way that God made you. And so, you just it takes a little bit of trial and error to get there, but getting some help from a nutritionist or a personal trainer, that can really get you a little bit further along the way. The thing is, that's not what we see in the YouTube comments. The YouTube comments are just like, "Dude, just lose weight." It's just so easy, but you look at the guys that say just lose weight, and what are they? They're skinny white dudes. So it's like, okay, it's not an intellectual conversation that we have often.
yeah,
Um,
no, it's not quite as simple as calories in, calories out, and I hate to say that because I wish it was. I wish it was just purely a will thing. Like, hey, like work out for 2 months straight, and you're gonna be exactly where you want to be. And you're going to notice the difference like really well. And because here's the thing, you start working out and then your metabolism changes. You want to eat a little bit more. And if you're not perfectly disciplined in the way, and not even just beyond disciplined, like you said, there's certain things that you might have some sort of sensitivity or allergy to said food. I know one of my girls, she's got so many food allergies and sensitivities and different things. Like buying food for her is really, really hard. And so she eats a pretty strict diet of really healthy things. But even she's a baby, so she's gonna have baby fat. But like in reality, and this is maybe oversharing, so hopefully I'm not doing that. In reality, she's noticeably chunkier than my older girl, who can eat whatever she wants. She can eat pizza covered in ranch with chicken nuggets, and my youngest cannot do that. She's on a pretty simple diet, and she is bigger. And so, like, I know that people didn't tune in here for a whole conversation on nutrition, but just in a holistic sense. And I love that we get to have this conversation, and we don't, we're not going to get offended talking to each other. Like I'm glad we're
yeah,
not there. And somebody said eating for your blood type. I've never heard of doing that before, but I'm curious to go do some research after this, and maybe we can follow up on that kind of comment. But I'm glad that in the meanwhile, while people are trying to figure out their life, and that's what your video did, I think, for over 100,000 people, is while we're on the journey of trying to figure out how we can be holistically healthy, like let's try to get our concealed carry situation straight so that we can, be safe and responsible and effective with the way we carry our guns, and not say, well, because I have, a couple inches on my waistline that wasn't there, when I was in my early 20s or in my high school days, or maybe it was, I'm relegated to I have to carry at 4 o'clock, or I need to just lose weight tomorrow. Like it, so I can't carry a gun the way I want to carry it. And maybe, that in the reality is not everybody can do that, right? Like not everybody can just carry a gun in whatever way they want. They have to take certain things into consideration. What are some of the points from that video? I've been going on for a moment. I apologize. But what are some of the like major points from that video where you said like, hey, these are the things that I found effective, or these are the things that I know are effective for guys who, or gals who have a little bit extra, the tactical muffin top, I think is the fun way of saying it.
yeah. For the most part, And this is what happens. This is what I see with my friends and my family and my clients, and the guys that come in to train and shoot matches. What usually ends up happening is they'll buy a holster off the rack, and they'll stick their gun in it, and they'll try to put it on their body, and either they can't hide the gun well enough to satisfy their own standards, or it just hurts. Like for instance, and a lot of this I'm drawing from my own personal experience, but the vast majority of this is what I'm seeing from our students that train with us, and the stuff that the challenges that we've had to overcome with them. And so um, the main issues that I'm seeing is that people don't know how to pick holsters. Um, they don't know what concealment. Uh, they don't know the concealment, like the main principles of concealment, like how to really hide a gun on your body, and they don't know how to do it comfortably or without any pain. And so that's so that first video, the it's just titled concealment holsters, and it goes through some of the things that I've learned from buying a whole mess of holsters, just way, way, way too much holsters. I probably spent like at least $1,000, maybe even $2,000 on just holsters that I no longer
Holy, did
wear
you say
anymore.
almost 2 grand in holsters? And I tell you what, it's not hard to do. Like, like I'm explaining like it's some big deal, but I mean, if you just buy one tier one concealment holster with all the accoutrements, as you can see, I'm on a kick for that word. It can cost you about $150. Which I say that, and I'm afraid that somebody who maybe even hasn't bought a gun yet and is tuned into this episode, because there's people who do that, which to me is like crazy, but that's awesome. Thank you for tuning in, even though you haven't even bought a gun yet. And we talk about guns and we talk about life. Yeah. But like you talk about guns a lot. So thank you for allowing us to be your gateway drug. It is my pleasure. First one's always free. So this is my point. There's a lot of holsters you can buy off the rack for, I'll say 30 because of inflation. Thanks, Obama. I'm just kidding. and then we have the mid tier ones, which they kind of start at 50, and then we have the ones that you can't buy a $50 version of their holster. It comes all together. It's going to cost $100 plus. I remember when T-Rex Arms raised his prices. Lucas Botkin on T-Rex Arms, he raised the prices from his when he went to the Gen 2 sidecar holsters. Sidecar holster, for people who are wondering, is your gun is on one side, attached through some sort of plastic or mesh or whatever material to a magazine carrier / whatever else you want. I know he pioneered a version that carried a tourniquet, or you could carry an AR-15 mag if you wanted to, which to me, that's ridiculous. Why would you do that? And then somebody would politely say, why not? And I'll say, okay, sir, touche, you win, But the point is, you're right. You buy one holster, let's say you buy 3-4 holsters in a year, and you go balls to the walls with it because you want to make sure it's the most comfortable thing. I mean, that's easily $700 if you've been in the game as long as you have. And I'm not even sure how many years you've been shooting or carrying a gun or trying to carry a gun. How many would you say?
Um, so I got my permit in 2014, and that's really where
Oh
I
yeah,
started carrying.
yeah.
Um,
You've been in this thing long enough to have bought $2,000 worth of holster if you just buy a few each year trying to figure stuff out.
you know, and
So
on top of you'll when you train or when you go to matches, what usually ends up happening is if you go with your own concealed carry gear, you're going to find very quickly whether or not it works for you or whether it doesn't. Like
mhm.
uh, one of my first concealed carry guns was an M&P. I I had a M&P full size for my house gun at the time. I was very very early in the journey, and I figured, okay, I'll get the little that held 12 rounds in the magazine, and I'll use that as my everyday carry. And it made sense for me because you can interchange the magazines. You can use the full size magazine and the little 12 round gun, and that should be fine. The problem though was I had a crappy holster. It didn't really work for me, and I carried that thing for like 6 months until I actually like made it out to a match, and immediately immediately found out that it did not work for me. I didn't get the grip I wanted.
He said
I
immediately no. What's
yeah.
that trend? Immediately no.
So I immediately regretted that decision. And so, it led me down the track of, okay, maybe I can buy this thing and it'll fix my problems. And after, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times of that, it got to the point where, look, there's something I'm missing here. I don't, I didn't understand enough. So I started seeking out some of the people that did understand. And so, it wasn't just stuff on Facebook either. It was really kind of joining certain groups and understanding um, who really knew their stuff as far as, like, not just how to conceal, but how to conceal in a way that I could still perform. Because you can bury a gun so deep under your clothes that, you know, you can, if you ever needed it, you'd never get to it. It'll be
Mm,
buried so deep. And, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me because you're taking on all the liability of carrying a gun and all the laws and all the regulations that you have to follow with that. But you're not getting any of the benefit because you can't get to it. It's buried too deep. So, I found a couple of names in the industry that really helped me out. Guys like Sarah and John Hopman, Filster Holsters, guys like Spencer Keepers of Keepers Concealment, guys like Ty Reed, who is now working at the Mid South Shooting Institute. Um, he was one of my fellow instructors up at Top Gun Memphis. He still is, does great work. Um, and so, some of the other guys that actually helped me, okay, this is how you perform from concealment. This is how you shoot from concealment. Guys like Tom Gibbons of Rangemaster, Akil Kadir and Tiffany Johnson of, Citizen Safety Academy, guys like John Hearn of Two Pillars Training. Just really, really cool people that um, are high performers in their own right, and then coupling that learning, being able to practice that in IDPA and USPSA matches, and even still challenge matches. You can't really carry everything. You can't wear everything at a steel challenge match, but in IDPA and USPSA, you could definitely show up in your carrier gear and you can just run. And that right there is really where I learned what works and what doesn't. Not really just from a performance standpoint, but from a comfort standpoint as well. You know, um, uh, One thing that kind of shied me away from appendix carry for a while was, all the other stuff that you would do in a match. So, have you ever been to IDPA matches or USPSA matches or anything like that?
I've not been personally to a match. I've watched plenty of them, but obviously there's a little bit more to it than the stuff that they put on camera.
Yeah. So, you'll shoot, and what'll happen is other people will shoot, and that'll be for that stage. And in between each shooter, like for instance, when you shoot, um, one guy will be the main range officer or safety officer, depending on your sport. Same thing, but he'll run the timer and he'll make sure that you're following the safety rules. That you're keeping your fingers straight and off the trigger until your sights are on the target. That you're keeping the muzzle down range, and that you're generally being safe with all the shooting and running and stuff like that. There's another guy with a scorekeeper. He'll have the tablet, and he'll be racking up your scores and keeping tracks of all your penalties. Um, Everyone else that's just watching is going to stay outside of the stage boundary until you get done shooting. And then when you get done shooting, they're going to reset the stage for you. They're going to reset it for the next shooter. So they're going to paste up all the holes you put in the targets. They're going to, if you drop any steel targets, then they're going to pick them back up and prop them back up for you. If there's any swinging targets or any kind of movers or anything like that, they're going to reset those. And that happens for every shooter. Um, the thing is, if you're carrying appendix and you know it's a new rig or you're not comfortable carrying appendix yet, that's going to suck because it's a
Hmm.
lot of bending over and a lot of movement and stuff like that. Also, if you're just new to shooting or new to concealed carry in general, and that was one of the things that really kind of made my journey very memorable. um, if you're new to carrying a gun in general, then and you have a holster that's not very comfortable, then all that moving and resetting and bending over and stuff like that is still it still sucks. So having a rig that's comfortable is really going to be where a lot of people start off, and that's because a lot of people don't generally shoot as much as they probably should. That's going to be the main criteria that a lot of guys use. Is it comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, generally from there, because they don't know, they simply don't practice enough, or, they're not instructors and they're not competitive shooters. They just want to be able to draw the gun effectively, and they may not know what it takes for them to do that. So they may not have a good idea of what kind of performance they should be looking for.
Yeah. I find this whole topic to be fascinating, but also very relatable in the sense that, for those who don't know, and I'm not sure why you don't know, if you didn't know, now you know, Armed Atlas is my online 2A firearms. I'm going to say persona, even though I don't really spruce it up for the camera. The most I'll do is maybe get a little bit more excited than my baseline chill just for the camera, because people get weird if you don't at least smile. You know what I mean? So point being, I've been doing, or I started a video series. I got a Glock 45 for my private security job. And I got the Glock 45 and I started trying it out. I'm like, okay, cool. What upgrades do I need to make to it? Because you don't just leave a Glock bone stock. I mean, you put some, you get your Talon grips for it, or you change your trigger out, or you at least upgrade your sights. Everybody says, well, you got to get the stupid Glock sights off first, and then you go from there. But here's something that I'm learning about even that, and this relates to exactly what you're saying. So I promise we're going somewhere with this story. As I've been going out and practicing with this gun in this Texas heat, I've realized that, okay, I'm drawing from concealment and it's really hot out. My hand has a slight layer of sweat. And as I'm trying to manage my recoil, there's this little bit of a slickness. My calluses aren't quite built up in such a way that it keeps the gun rock solid. So I have a choice. So, okay, well, if I'm going to use this thing for real, and say if I'm working at like a Texas State Fair or something like that, in the middle of wherever, and it might be a little warm, my hands might be a little slick, or you might have some sort of bodily fluid on your hands, because that can happen in a real life incident. Do I want a little bit extra grip so I can put shots on target and not be trying to save the gun from going off into the, what's that circle thingy in the Ferris wheel?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, if you don't want the gun to end up in the Ferris wheel from the recoil just jumping out with these slick hands, maybe get something extra. Maybe I get the gun professionally stippled. And this is where I'm going. My thought process for getting into what should I actually change on this gun and what should I leave stock, because you don't want to just change everything, because that's a waste of money, a waste of time. And at some point you're going to mess with the reliability of a gun if you just keep changing things. It was meant to run at a certain pace. But what do I need to change? And similarly with the new holster setup, as you mentioned, John, from Filster Concealment, he sent me out a Floodlight 2 to go with the X300 Turbo that we got from Surefire. And that's been really, really great. Although I really have no complaints. But you should know that it gets a little bit uncomfortable to carry an appendix when it's heat index to be like 110 and you're out there for 4 hours doing anything. And once you finally take that holster off, it's just going to be drenched in sweat. Your gun's going to be covered in sweat. So maybe you want a sweat guard for your slide. Maybe you want a this or that to kind of, help you in that situation. Maybe you consider different clothing choices to kind of help with your sweat wicking. And with that holster, I looked at it and it's like, okay, well, thankfully this is not like very uncomfortable. But maybe I would like an even smaller holster. Maybe I forgo the light altogether, even though you spent $300 or it was $350 for that version on a light. On a light, why would you do that? It's one of the best lights out there, so that's why. But you spend $350 on a light, you should probably carry it on a gun at some point. I don't know. Maybe it's up to you. But there's questions. The reason why I brought this up is you have to ask questions, go out there and actually practice with your stuff, get out there and be exposed to the elements. Okay, what's it like shooting this gun when it's cold? What's it like shooting this gun when it's hot? And am I going to tinker it so much that, it's a little bit better to shoot this when it's hot, that now it sucks to shoot it cold? Because if you add like aggressive texturings to a gun and your hands are cold, that's even more painful. So, pick your poison, right? I said a lot. Thank you for bringing up this topic because I think people really do need to consider the gear that they're running and actually like put it to the test and recognize that places like USPSA, IDPA, and other steel challenges and whatnot, it can help you like 3-gun and whatnot can help you to reckon. Well, I don't know if you can run certain gear in 3-gun, but it can help you to realize like this is the limitation to my gear. And in practical everyday stuff, like I'm bending down, I'm standing up, I'm bending down again, I'm standing up, I'm bending down quickly. I don't have time to adjust my pants so that my gun rides at the perfect height for bending down. People don't think about that. Where I'm going is you're absolutely right. You have to really experience it and then make adjustments.
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That was great. I know we were talking about the things that I was asking you about the things that you do or the things that you recommended in that video. Is there like a short like list of like do this, 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 and this, or are people just going to have to go watch the video? Is that what you're saying? People just need to go watch the video?
No, not really. I think the main thing is just understand. I think the main question that people have to ask themselves is, what are they looking for?
Yeah.
Like what are our success criteria? What is mission? What's the mission that we're trying to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
And for most of us, it is to carry a gun comfortably, without detection, and if I still need it, I should be able to get it out. And that's basically that. And everything that we can do to make that as intuitive and comfortable as possible, it should be considered. The thing is, and I know this from personal experience and also from some clients and students that we've had. A lot of people go the wrong way with it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
they end up like getting these tiny guns that they can't really shoot very well.
Yeah.
And like for instance, there was a buddy of mine. He's about 6'2" and weighs 320 pounds. And he showed up to class with a P365. And I was like, "Hey man, let me take a look at your hand." And his hands are. I was like, "Well, let's put it like this: a P365 at the time was my ankle gun." And that's about where I
Mm.
had it in my mind. I would never, it would be my primary gun. It might even be a gym gun. I would consider going to the gym with that, or going for a jog, going for a walk or something. I wouldn't like if I had my wife and kid and we were at the fair, or we were at the mall or whatever. That would not be the gun that I would take. Never in a million years. So
Yeah.
no, I want something that's more comfortable. I want something that fits my hand better, and something that's going to be a little bit more easy for me to shoot. Um, but that's really what it really comes down to. Just take a look at a lot of people. And another thing that I keep seeing is that a lot of folks really don't know what they want from a holster, because now we end up having shifting criteria when it comes down to choosing our holsters. Like for instance, when I talk to people, hey, what are you looking for? Are you looking for concealability? Are you looking for comfort? Are you looking for cost? And everybody says, yeah, I want it to be concealable and I want it to be comfortable. All right, cool. It's going to cost this much. And they're like, oh, no. And that's why that's why holsters that are sold on Amazon and eBay end up being so successful. That is why everybody I know has a drawer full of those holsters, because, well, maybe this $30 holster would do it for me, or maybe this $50 holster would do it for me. And, it doesn't do it for them. And that's why they're
Mm-hmm.
$30, they're $50, because, it'll work for dudes. It won't work for ladies. It won't work for big dudes. It won't work for the vast majority of the people that we see. But in order for you to have something that's going to be more comfortable, it's going to cost a little bit more, because you have to be able to cover the R&D and the manufacturing and the distributing. You have to be able to cover that stuff. You're dealing with professionals here, and so they need to be paid for the work that they're putting into you. So um, And so, I put out a couple of recommendations as far as, good holster manufacturers. But the main thing I put into that video is like what we should be looking for in a holster. And break it down into like a 30-second snippet. A holster should be, it really should be safe. The four jobs of a holster is number one, it needs to protect the trigger. It absolutely needs to protect the trigger. If that trigger can still be pulled, sometimes even by the holster itself, then we shouldn't have it on our body. Um, Number two, it needs to be able to like hide the gun, and that's the main reason why we mess with holsters. Instead of messing with shotguns or rifles, I can't carry a rifle under my shirt, so I'm going to carry a pistol. Um, the third thing is to keep the gun in position. That way, I can draw it quickly. I don't want the gun to be here or here. Some gun holsters are actually made to shift around with your body. The problem with that is, especially with us as big dudes, um, that can drive the gun into a crevice that might be sensitive to pain and discomfort, or it might be hard for me to get my hand into. And then the fourth thing it needs to do is it needs to do all that stuff without any discomfort or any pain. It needs to be comfy. So it's not going to be as comfy as not wearing a gun, but it shouldn't be painful. You know, you shouldn't have bruises. It shouldn't distract you from everyday life. It shouldn't keep you from the things that you do every day. So, um, and even as a big dude, yeah, appendix works for me because I there's certain limitations. I I don't really carry a weapon mounted light every day because I can't hide it on my body. My body just does not allow it. There's not enough space. So, if I did have enough space, then I would probably do it. But I just don't have that space there. It's just so much easier to just carry the gun instead of carrying a weapon mounted light. And I think another thing that a lot of people don't know is how many really, really good holster companies are out there that are willing to help you at the drop of a hat, and how many accessories there are to help you better hide the gun and to better make it a little bit more comfortable. Like like one trend that I'm seeing is with pillow wedges. They're little pouches that are filled with cotton, and it's a pillow that you stick on your holster, and it keeps away those hot spots that a lot of people have with appendix carry. A lot of people don't realize that's a thing. So there's just one thing that if you don't want to do that, you have sheepskin cloth that ends up being really comfy. Is most commonly associated with ankle carry holsters, but
Sheepskin cloth for you a
can.
holster, like cover, or like that's so
Oh
interesting. I've
yeah,
never seen that.
yeah. Because one pain point that a lot of people have is the edge of the holster will dig into a crevice, and so I'll actually go a little bit over into a different direction because I think it'll better address this concern. Um, there's three main questions that people should ask themselves anytime they're having discomfort with a holster. The first thing is the gun in their sweet spot? Um, Filster Holsters actually has like a lot of educational materials. That's where I learned a lot of this from. Um, there are sweet spots on your body, and the way that you would find that is you would have to identify your peaks and your valleys. Like your valleys are basically those areas that your clothes typically drape over, and your peaks are where those areas that your clothes rest on. Like if your gun sits on a peak, then it's gonna print. Like for me, my biggest peak is my. Um, for some people, their biggest peaks are their hips. So it just depends on your body and your needs. But what you want to do is, in order for you to successfully hide the gun, you want to hide it in a valley and keep it away from peaks. And so once you find that place where you can draw it effectively, but it's still comfortable every single day, then we could basically call that our sweet spot. And we could start looking into ways to keep the gun there. Um, and then the second two questions I would ask is uh, where does it hurt? And what part of the gun slash holster is actually hurting you? So, and for a lot of people, all they know is that it hurts, but they haven't really thought enough into this thing to identify what part of their body actually hurts. Like for some people, and this was happening with me when I first got into appendix, the rear sights were digging into my stomach right there by my belly button. Another thing that was happening was the edge of the holster, the very edge where a lot of these holsters are basically made from kydex and they taco together.
Hmm.
Well, that taco edge would cut against it would come into my thigh, and it
Ooh.
would cause discomfort there. And then also, because a lot of people have more gun above the belt than they have below it, what'll happen is it'll cause the gun to tip out, and when that gun tips out, the muzzle tips in, and that can create a hot spot. It really happens with bigger dudes because the gut is pushing against the gun,
I actually
and
saw
so
this with, and I don't mean to interrupt you because I do want you to finish your
yeah,
list, but I actually saw this on a skinnier guy. I went out to GunCon with John Patton of the Gun Collective. He invited me out there. For those who want to watch a little bit of the coverage on the On Atlas channel, we did the video on the 2311 by Oracle Arms. We kind of do a little bit of a recap of the show, and we dive deep into the gun. But if you're interested in that, but the point of me bringing that up is I was hanging out. It was Thursday night. We were doing a little bit of a dinner, and I was talking to one of Got Gamage's at Got Gamage, one of his guys from the oh dang, what's it called? He's got this crew, and they're just the coolest guys. Anyways, Fireman. He was there, and he was carrying a gun. I think he was carrying some sort of 1911, 2011, and those are heavy guns, and I could see it printing way harder than it should have. He's a skinny guy. When I say skinny, he's built well. Like he's in the gym, he's working out. When I say built well, he's on the leaner side, but he's got muscle for
like
context.
wiry.
Yeah, he's wiry, but you can tell he's benching pretty good. I'm like, okay, like he's got no reason why any gun should show. Like he should be able to carry a bazooka, and it's not printing. You know what I mean? Which somebody's going to say something. Somebody's going to clip that. Anyways, point being, I could see the whole top of the gun, like a good just chunk of it, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, hey, what you carrying? And he's like, oh, I'm carrying this. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a pretty heavy gun. I can see what you need a wedge because the bottom, like this, I don't think it was some commander or like snub nose 2011 or something like that. Like, so the bottom of the gun and the top of the gun, it's not balancing out, and his belt's probably just a little too loose, so that the top of the gun was tipping over and spilling into the world for everybody to see, completely defeating the point of even having a shirt. Like, just go ahead and untuck, like tuck in your shirt and let the gun show at this point. And I'm not saying anything against him. He's a great guy, but at that point, you should recognize, like, okay, this gun is not balanced on my belt. My belt's too soft. I need something more rigid. Maybe I need a wedge to help bolster the gun back into submission so that
Yeah. tucked
tucked snugly against my body and it's not going to cause a problem with printing. Maybe that might cause an additional issue to kind of work out, but at that point, at least you're not losing your element of concealment. So thank you for bringing that up. I had to share that. So I know we were going through, so we have the remembrance. We were going through your list of things that you recommend if you're a bigger guy and you're just like, shoot, I want to be able to carry an appendix, or I want to carry period, but I'm having a hard time concealing.
Yeah. So if you do need extra help, then I mean, it's so hard to tell people, hey, just go to YouTube or look for this specific video, because what you're asking them to do is to dig through all this garbage and find, the main thing that you're looking for. And what I'll probably do is, wherever I see this video that we're on right now, I'll just uh, I'll link a couple of different videos to it. But the main resources that I use in order for me to help me out with my concealment is the Filster stuff, their YouTube channel
Yeah,
and
they're
their
great.
website. It actually has like the basics of concealment carry, and even if you're still on YouTube, I know I'm old, but if you're still on YouTube, I'm sorry, not YouTube, but Facebook. If you're still on
Ooh,
Facebook,
Facebook.
then yeah,
We're ancient at this point.
yeah, but if you're still on Facebook, then find the Filster Concealment Workshop, and there's a lot of holster makers in there that actually help people out. They go out of their way, they spend their free time in there to help people out with their concealment. Um, like for instance, like Spencer Keepers of Keepers Concealment. Uh, John Mayer of JM Custom Kydex, Tom Kelly of Dark Star Gear, um, Sarah and John Hopman. Those guys are on there, and they actually give a lot of really good advice, and there's a lot of good discussion in there. Um, but here on YouTube and on most of the other social media platforms, the folks that usually the guys that end up having a little bit more um, higher value information are going to be um, so just to give it some specific channel names, there's the shootist, the suited shootist. His name's Alex, and he does a great job of like really really high class fashion.
He was just
There's
on your
also
show.
he was yeah he the dude's awesome, and that's
Hold on,
why
before you
we talk so
continue,
much.
I apologize. We didn't mention that you have your own show, and we will talk about that. But I do want to just quickly just throw in there that right now you're doing a podcast. You just had Suited Shootist on the show, so people watch that video or watch one of his videos and say, "Hey, I really like this. I want to know more about this guy." Go over to Memphis Beach YouTube channel and check out his EDC podcast, Everyday Conversations. Am I right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So please continue, sir. I just had to take a moment to shout you out.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Um, so if you're not a big dude, yeah, Filster, they have a lot of good stuff. If you are a bigger dude, you can look at my channel, and you could also look for another bigger dude that Appendix carries and does it really well. You can look for a dude named Spencer Keepers of Keepers Concealment, and he's been making holsters for a very long time. He's a extremely well accomplished shooter. Like the dude really he can get down. So there's this thing in the tactical community called a turbo pen, and he has three of them. So, and also no other holster has had more turbo pens than Spencer Keepers holsters. So there's that. The only problem is it's like a $200 Codex holster. It's like $200.
Do you know
So
why it costs that much? Is it just his cost plus what makes it valuable to him? Like, people don't understand. Like in the world of business, sometimes things are expensive because that's kind of that's the number. Everybody's got a number. That's his number of what it takes to put his material, time, and effort into getting you the perfect product. So, but
yeah,
do you have any idea why his is priced that way? Is he a big manufacturer, or is he kind of one of the smaller guys? So his material cost is kind of still big or tremendous.
it's a mom and pop shop, but
Okay, yeah.
the thing is, he I'm not exactly sure what his background was. I think people have talked about him being in uh, like metalworking or auto body repair or something like that. But what he found a long time ago was that Kydex can have the same properties as not carbon fiber, but they can have the same properties as metal and as fiberglass. Whereas there are certain ways that you could bolster the structural integrity just by shaping it a certain way,
Hmm.
and using high quality materials that most other holster makers aren't going to do. A lot of your holster makers, especially on eBay, you'll just they'll just cook stuff up in their garage, and that's how they sell it. Um, that's and I used to hang out with a guy that did that. He just did stuff in his garage. He would press it together, and he would use, like, I don't know, maybe $1.50 worth of Kydex, and that's how he would sell holsters for $40.
He's
And
getting rich
you
off of people's desire to have a cheap holster, and he's not
yeah,
putting anything
and
into it.
yeah, but Spencer Keepers is a little bit of a different animal because he's using his professional trade craft towards holster work, and then also it took a lot of R&D, like his independent R&D stuff that use trial and error in order for him to figure out what really works for him and what really works for a lot of people. And so for me, what happened was I ended up being drawn to that because, finding a way to tuck the gun deeper into your body without using a concealment wing or a claw. Like he had built in the wedge into the holster. And so it was just a nice design. No one else was doing it. Um, Also, he even made a staccato holster that let's say you forget to put the safety on. Uh, Once you slide it into a Spencer Keeper's holster, it automatically depresses the safety for you.
Wow.
That's big brain stuff. So
That's next level. Yeah.
um, yeah, so high quality materials and R&D. That's really what you're paying for, and then also everything's handcrafted. So just a couple of dudes in their shop, but it's really high quality stuff, and the results speak for themselves. I think there's maybe 8 or 10 people that have turtle pins now because of Spencer Keeper's holsters, and he just understands what makes it work, what it takes to conceal the gun in a way that's comfortable, and that you can still drive the gun out to the target very consistently and effectively. Um, so you got that going on. Look online for Spencer Keepers. He doesn't really have a YouTube video, but Lucky. No, wait, it wasn't Lucky Gunner, but it was Active Self Protection that ended up posting some videos with Spencer Keeper in there, and they're very good. Um, as a matter of fact, Lucky Gunner did do some Spencer Keepers videos as well. It was called AIWB on Big Dudes, and that's another video to look at. Now, if you work in a corporate environment, or if you tuck your shirt in every day, or if you just have a higher standards for your style instead of just walking around with like polo shirts and jeans everywhere, then Alex of the Shoot It Shootist is really who you want to be looking for. If you're a lady, then Tessa from Armed and Styled ends up being the highest information out there, the highest quality information. And let's see, what other resources do we have? I think that's really just about it on YouTube. So, but those are really the main things. A lot of people don't know what they want from a holster because they say they want comfort until it prints, or they say they want comfort until it's time to pay the price tag, or they say they want comfort. Um, I, they say they want comfort until they find out that it takes them 2 months to make their holster. And that's another thing about the industry that I just never understood. You got guys like Spencer Keepers that'll get your holster on in 2 weeks. JM Custom Kydex will get your holster on in 2 weeks, especially if it's quick ship. Spencer Keepers. You got companies like Dark Star Gear that'll get it to you in 2 weeks. Henry holsters and Filster will usually ship next day. Um, their selection is so much smaller though. They won't do every gun. They won't do every configuration or every weapon mounted light or anything like that. So if you have like an IWI Masada with an O light on it, then it's going to take you a little bit longer to find a holster for that than for a Glock 19 with a TLR1.
Right.
So it's just the facts. But those guys, Filster holsters and Henry holsters, they're getting stuff out to people like they're shipping next day or sometimes even same day, depending on what time of day that you get it out there. So for a holster maker to take like a month or 2 months, then for me, what that says is that business is so good that we don't have to tighten up our production,
Mm.
and they're just kind of happy where they are, and that's fine.
Victims of their own
Uh,
success. And so are
yeah,
you.
and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just going to
I
take
mean,
my
I
money
do.
somewhere else.
Is it okay if I have a problem? I can understand if you are kind of a small operation, like a lot of the guys that I mess with who aren't, Filster, because Filster, I think they're like the Apple in the holster world, in my opinion. And I've had him on the show before, like, so maybe I'm shilling a little bit on accident just because I like the guy. But the reality is, I think between the way his mind works and the product that they put out and the intentionality that they put behind, whether it's their online community or their just educational platform, like it's just so robust. Like you can't beat that with a wooden spoon, as your grandma would say. But like just I see some of the smaller guys that I know who aren't John from Filster, John and his wife. And I'm like, okay, I can understand if maybe your lead time's like 3-4 weeks, or if there's a special, if I want purple camo Kydex and you have a special purple camo Kydex sheet coming in, but it came out wrong. So now it's going to take you a little while longer because you got to go through a different manufacturer. I get it. Like, and that's a real story, true story. I get that. What I don't get is, well, there's a lead time. What lead time on a what? A piece of plastic? Okay, well, how many guys you got working on it? Okay, you got. Well, tell them work faster. Gosh, pay them more. Like do something. There's people. I bought this gun to carry, and I can't carry it because why? And it's not a rare gun. Like, it's a Glock. Come
Yeah.
on.
And so that's why so many people buy from Amazon and eBay and stuff like that
Jeez. We the
because,
people
you
holsters.
know,
Excuse me.
yeah. So because they'll get it to me in 2 days and it costs like $12 or whatever it
Right.
is, you know?
I don't know
So
if they're selling them for $12 anymore. That's not unless you're getting that thing from Wuhan. I'm not sure that you're gonna get it for $12. But
yeah.
point being is I understand, and I think that people really should invest a little bit more into their gear. And I'm hearing some of the comments already. Not that our people who comment get ridiculous in this way, but there's this consumerism that happens, and I want to talk about the consumerism behind the new oh my gosh, what's it called? Springfield Echelon, which is
Mm.
seems like a really cool gun. I want to talk about that with you in a second. Hopefully, I don't ruin your relationship with Springfield or mine, but we'll talk about that when we go to commercial. But I guess my question or thought process is like, I wonder if people will say like, "Oh man, they're telling me I need to spend more money on a holster." Yes, I am. I don't know if you are, but I am. I'm saying
Yeah.
if there's features that you want, you might have to do something to get it. Like, what's it worth to you? Is it worth a couple extra bucks? Is it worth waiting a little extra longer because it's coming from some guy who doesn't make a lot of holsters, but he's going to make yours? I actually had a guy once who bought a holster. It took him months to get the holster, and then the holster didn't fit his gun perfectly. And there's nothing he could do about it because of the way it was molded or something. I don't know what the heck happened.
Mm.
That was sad. We really wanted to support that guy too. Either way, sometimes you might have to spend more or buy trinkets in order to really get this gun to work for you. And that's hard to tell a newbie who buying a gun in the first place was kind of a big deal for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really the biggest issue for a lot of folks. They just live in a world that may not be conducive with carrying a firearm. They may not be able to carry it to work because their work has a gun-free policy, or they might live in a locale that may be unfriendly to gun ownership, or maybe
I,
they
I like how you said low California.
um, sometimes they even have like family right there in their own house that think they're crazy because really you want to carry a gun everywhere, like who like who's going after you? Like that doesn't make any
I
sense.
mean,
And
it's kind of a weird thing if you really think about it. Like if you live in a nice, peaceful society in a neighborhood that's not overly dangerous, why do you put? My daughter calls it. She thinks guns are for fighting, which kinda. I mean, kinda. But like,
yeah,
if you're not planning on getting into a fight, why would you carry the most effective fighting tool imaginable? And
yeah,
so
because you
there's
don't
that question
plan
there.
for that. Yeah, you don't plan for a fight. It just happens. Like if you go to a hospital or if you go to uh, like the local county jail or whatever else have you. If you talk to anybody that's recovering from a fight, like they got stabbed or they got shot or something, or maybe they just got jumped by like four dudes, um, then they're never gonna sit there and tell you, "Yeah, I saw that coming." I kind of knew that was going to happen. No, it usually happens by surprise. And so that's the whole reason why we want to carry defensive tools on us because we don't really get to set an appointment for the worst day of your life. It really just kind of happens. So,
Set an appointment for the worst day of your life. Wow, that's
yeah.
one way to put it, right?
Yeah, you don't get to set an appointment for that. You can't say, "Well, you know what? I'm free on Friday of next Tuesday. So maybe let's have our gunfight then." No, it's just going to happen. And
Right.
sometimes you might see it coming, sometimes you might not. Like that idiot that cuts you off on the interstate. Um, he just so happens to he might have a truck gun, or he might be carrying, or let's say the couple of guys that decide, well, you got enough money to where I'm gonna break into your house and take it from you, or just You might be in the grocery store parking lot and you just so happen to be the target of opportunity. You're not really going to have that kind of forward warning a lot of the times. A lot of times you're going to be operating from a counter ambush perspective. So, to yeah, awareness is going to help you out a ton. I think that 90% of the issues that you run into are probably going to be defeated by awareness, and that little ounce of prevention is going to outweigh a pound of cure,
Mm.
or maybe in my case, like I don't know, like 29 or 30 ounces of cure. So, um, but when the fight happens, all you get to use is the gear that's on you, not the gear that's in your truck, and sometimes not even the gear that's in your purse, but just whatever you have on you that you can get your hands on. So, and that's really one of the most important things about a holster. A lot of people think of it as an accessory, like a belt or some shoes, and it's not. This is life saving equipment here. Like this is something that I'm keeping a deadly weapon in this thing. So we should give it the gravity that it deserves, and we should think about that in a way that allows us to think about it intellectually. We should think about it as a part of our emergency equipment. Like for instance, if you were living in a neighborhood or it was a time of year where fires break out commonly. Over in California, they were going through a drought, and there were a lot of wildfires and a lot of things like that. It became very, very much high priority to start having emergency things. Having a fire extinguisher became important. Having emergency food, emergency water became important. Um, and so sometimes things like that are going to happen, and you need to be prepared for that. But imagine if you live in not really a world or an environment, but if you just take a look at some of the stuff that's happening on the news, then our world is becoming more and more violent. And
Yeah.
you know, right now, in this moment in time here in America, we have more access to more technology that we can use to defend ourselves from criminal violence than we've ever had in the history of this country. We have access to more firearms, better ammunition, quality training, and a lot of that stuff. You might not even have to go far. At least for the training aspects, a lot of that stuff you can even get remotely. Like I'm doing a lot of virtual private lessons right now. So, it's just um, to take it more seriously and to help people along with, you know, getting into the mindset of, carrying a gun around every day with you. It's kind of scary for people. It was scary for me at least. Um, I hate living in a world where I have to carry a loaded gun everywhere, but this is where I am. That's the reality.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I'll go ahead and put a pin in that by saying, not too long ago when I first started this podcast, episode one, which is kind of hard to find. So I apologize. But we were doing it during Texas Snowmageddon, where the grid was overloaded by the amount of snow and ice and just strain that it collapsed large sections of the Texas power grid, which is an independent power grid. That said, people were literally died in their homes due to freezing, carbon monoxide poisoning because they were in the garages warming up in the car. And they didn't understand some of the finer details of how to do that safely. So, like entire families just in a blanket huddled together, negative degrees. It was a bad situation. And it doesn't take much for lights to be out for 3 days. Somebody's food goes bad, you run out of food, to start getting ideas in your head about where you're going to get your next meal. And if people can't get to you, there are people who will take it into their own hands to go get what they feel like they need from you. And they don't care who you are, what you've done. And maybe they do care. Maybe they care in the sense that they believe that because of who you are, you'll be fine. You're just fine. Like you said earlier, if a bad guy thinks that you'll be fine without $100, you'll be fine without that TV. You can buy a new one. That's what insurance is for, said a lot of bad
Yeah.
guys. And it doesn't take much. There's a lot of people who their moral compass is not quite straight, and they will come for you. And I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm really not. But it almost sounds like that. but they will come. And when they come, it's not a matter of if in your lifetime. It seems like in everyone's lifetime, we're experiencing life-changing events, like once in a lifetime activities. Everybody's experiencing like Snowmageddon, like the whole grid going down. That's crazy. How could that happen? For a lot of people, it's, grids are going down due to heat. I'll go ahead and put a pin in it here because we need to cover one quick commercial break before we cover the last one or two topics. And let's go ahead and get that done right now. So let me make sure this is right here. Guys, if you've been following me for a long time, you know that in addition to this podcast, I do some gun tuber stuff. Like I review guns and gear on the YouTubes and Instagram. So follow me everywhere at Armed Atlas, or on Instagram at armed_Atlas, which is, should I change it? Should I change it to at Armed Atlas? I don't know. I don't know if I care that much, but this is something that the company Otis sent out, and I find it to be like really cool and kind of exciting. And forgive me as I kind of geek out about this. And I forgot to grab the most important part, but it's this mini cleaning kit, and maybe I'll put a video out individually on the YouTube channel. If you guys want to see that, let me know. But there's a mini cleaning kit. It's like it's the size of a McMuffin, and it has everything you need. In addition to that, there's this is their ultimate cleaning kit. It's a little pricey, but I think there's a discount code like Atlas 15 or something like that, and you can save some money, right? But this has everything from solvents to lubricants to brush sizes, from odd sizes like 0.25 all the way up to 28 gauge. Does anybody need that? I don't. You know what? It's not my business what you need. It's my business to tell you that it's available. So if you want something like that, I'm going to go ahead and link it in the show notes and description, all that jazz. I'm going to pin it into the live pinned comments. You should be able to see it right now. Don't leave because I want you to experience the end of the show. But as soon as we're done, just go ahead and hop over there. Code like Atlas 15, and you're going to be able to find all sorts of stuff. Is it shooter's preference, or is it shooter's choice? What's it called? I can't remember the name, but it's the same company, like Otis Cleaning. It's all fantastic. You should definitely take a look at it. And let's go ahead and get back to the show because I want to talk to Memphis about. First, we're going to take like a quick detour and talk a little bit about the Springfield for the algorithm, and then we're going to talk about what it's like to be a father. How about that, my man? Thank you so much for being patient. And before we talk about being a dad in the gun world, let's talk about that new Springfield. You're in the private Discord group, which is only available to my bestest friends in the industry, plus the Patreon guys, which actually, I think they're the same thing, aren't they? Like, I mean, if you're part of the Patreon, or if you're on the Armed Atlas YouTube channel, there's YouTube memberships. If you're there, like, you're my guy or gal or whatever you are. Just don't tell my wife, or she'll be like, "What? What do you mean? What do you mean she's your gal? What? Like, I don't need those problems." So like, yeah. But let's talk about the new Springfield. I have gone on record as not being a Springfield Hellcat Pro apologist, but I did a video on the Springfield Hellcat over a year ago, and the video actually did pretty well. Got like over 20,000 views on it. It's a video, right? And it wasn't much. I was just talking about how if you shoot it and you like it, you should buy a gun that you shoot and like. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. A few months later, I was talking to the Springfield guys. I didn't get the gun for free. I just got a little bit of a discount, just because I asked really nicely, and I guess, I smiled real big, and they were like, "Okay, we'll give you a little discount." Got the Hellcat Pro, and I carried that gun for over a year. Now I'm carrying the Glock 45 as kind of like my daily driver, which is crazy. That's way too big of a gun for most people to daily, but I'm doing it anyways because I love myself, I guess. Point being, recently Springfield said, let's make a big boy version of the Hellcat, like a real big boy version, like for cops and like military guys. And we're going to like copy every single handgun maker that's finding success, between like the Zev OZ9s, the oh my gosh, who did it? It wasn't Ruger. It was another, the Beretta. I think there's a Beretta that has a fire control unit system in there. I could be wrong. And then there's the SIGs, which are the most popular firearms to have like a singular unit that is serialized, the fire control unit, and you being able to swap out different parts, being like the lower and the uppers, or the frames, and kind of making the gun yours, whether it's a different color frame or a different size or a different third party manufacturer making a frame that's more your speed, which is really cool. And then they made this, and then they announced that they also added an optics system, which is like a multi optics footprint that can accommodate up to, I think they said 30 different footprints. Somebody said that, but I don't think that's correct. I think it's 30 different optics meet that footprint that they have, which is a couple different holes and studs. And I'm not sure if it's going to hold up, but it seems cool so far. What's your take on this? Because the market has been absolutely flooded. I'm sure Scout, who's in the comment section right now, we were just joking about how I can't open YouTube without seeing a video of somebody who I don't even know who you are, but I know that you're talking about the new Springfield. I didn't get one. What, should I be offended? I don't know. I think I've been talking about this gun and shooting it. But I'm not mad. They forgot me. It's okay. But point being is this gun's flooding the market. What are your thoughts? I'm curious, as a guy who shoots a lot of guns and shoots them well, what are your thoughts on one more gun hitting the market?
Well, thanks for that. So shooting a lot of guns, shooting it well. Right now, I'm averaging about 800 to 1,200 rounds a month.
Jeez.
On some years, like in COVID year, like 2020 was a slow year. I think I only shot maybe like 10 or 12,000 rounds that year. Most other years, I'm averaging about like 15 to 18,000 rounds per year. And a lot of that is because I'm a sponsored shooter. The local gun range is named Top Gun Memphis, and I shoot professionally. Well, not professionally. I'm sponsored on that
Semi-pro?
team. It is semi-pro, yeah. And IDPA, I'm a master class shooter. USPSA and Still Challenge, I'm an A class. Looking at master, and so there I shoot it a lot. Um, but one of the things that so we saw, the Springfield Echelon come around, and I'm looking at some of the other guns that Springfield had, like the one gun that I would like the most from Springfield is the Hellcat, because I just like it. It's got great texture. It comes out of the box with a really really bright front sight
Mm-hmm.
and a blacked out rear, and I think that's important. Um, the trigger is serviceable. It's nice, and I'm shooting primarily Glocks, and that trigger is it's serviceable. It's okay. It's not even nice. It's you'd have to break it in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say a really good trigger. The company that really did it well was SIG does a good trigger. Walther PDP, they have a good trigger. Most of the Walther stuff is excellent.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's
H
a
and K, they
pre-cocked
do.
trigger, so it's
Yeah,
going to be nice.
yeah. So, most of those are good triggers. Triggers I didn't like were the M&P like original dog leg triggers.
Yeah, those are bad.
Their newer trigger is pretty serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm looking at this Echelon, and a couple of things that a lot of people just really don't understand about the Echelon is that it's still a Croatian gun. It was made in Croatia and is imported. So a lot of people don't understand that. So just like the HS 2000 and the HS 9, those were Croatian. But Springfield ended up importing those, and that's where you get the XD from. So a lot of people just didn't understand that. But and also there's a little bit of a initial bias that I had against Springfield when I first got into the gun market, because I thought that Springfield was the same Springfield Armory that that provided like M1A Garands to like the revolutionary, like
Mm-hmm.
it was one of those things. And I was like, okay, well, it took me a little bit of digging for me to find out that back in the 1970s, when the Springfield Armory officially closed, and it turned into like basically a museum now, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that patent became available for that name, and so there's a Springfield in Massachusetts, not Massachusetts, but Illinois, and the guy ended up buying the name, and he ended up making that company. And then also a couple years ago, you had that carve out issue that they had, like
Right.
their lobbyists, yeah, all the gun control stuff that happened. And so a lot of people are still kind of bitter about that. So, you know, for such a gun, and I call this gun kind of important because it illustrates some things, and I'm not a huge fan of Springfield as a company or as an organization, but I really, really like what Echelon is doing because they have it's looking like an innovative slide cut for optics, um, almost like kind of what Shadow Systems has, to where
Hmm.
they can accommodate a bunch of different optics without needing a plate. And then also they're using the FCU design the same way that the 6 Hour is doing with the P320s. Hopefully they don't run into the same safety hurdles and stuff like that. Word on the street is they went through a little bit more of a little bit more R&D to make sure that it was drop safe, to make sure that they didn't have those same issues. So what it does emphasize is that I'm hoping that this now becomes the industry standard. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that as an industry, we start moving away from, frames that are tied to the serial number of guns. Or we start moving away from, optics plates, and that these are things that other companies can do now. If Springfield can do it, why can't Glock and Smith and Wesson and Walther? Why can't those guys do it?
Right. And I'll say this: I believe in the gun market, Springfield occupies a place that's more akin to T-Mobile or Sprint, like back in the day, back when they were just some underling
Yeah,
corporations, compared to where like Verizon and AT&T were like, okay, if you got a Verizon, okay, people would be fine with you. Okay, you got Verizon, okay. Oh, you have T-Mobile. If you have even a single text that takes more than 3 seconds to go through, oh, you got T-Mobile. I used to work there, so I heard it all the time. And some of those statements were true, and unfortunately, some of them were a little bit more exaggerated just because bias. But I feel like Springfield tends to be that company that they can put out a banger or something that's kind of like a sleeper. Like some people really like the Hellion, which was a Croatian import, like literally a Croatian service gun imported in white labeled almost Springfield. And some people liked it. Some people were like, well, it's not a Tavar. I'm like, well, do you want it to be? Do you want it to be? Like, I don't know. Like guns are going to do things differently. And then I've not met one serious gun guy who really enjoy. And I apologize if, well, maybe I don't. I apologize if you're a serious gun guy and you really enjoy the XD. I know one of our guys in the group, he's got his XDM and he really likes it. I Other than him, and I'm not sure exactly how many, how often he shoots and what he compares it to. I've not met really too many guys who are really serious about like what they want in a gun who say, oh yeah, XD is like the way. I know a lot of guys who that was their first gun and they moved on to better things.
yeah,
And when I first saw the marketing, and I guess we should talk about the marketing for this gun. So when I first saw the marketing for it, I said, I wonder if they're dropping the XD and finally going into it. But I'm going to set the stage really quick. So when Springfield announced, I think I saw it on Twitter, they announced that this gun was coming out. I saw like a barren battlefield and just a giant N and a sword just stabbed into the ground. And apparently there's some fighter jets in the background that nobody saw. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I think nothing of it. And then the homie Nina Della Flores, Destiny, Dez, whatever you know her as, Fab Firearms Academy, she gets upset because I guess there's a lot of losers on the internet who are like, ha ha ha, N and a sword, the N and a sword, that must be NI. And anytime you see the word N on the internet, like that clearly is a serious racial epithet, slur. And it's like, okay, you guys are all 12 and or have some sort of problem. I see where we are. I'm gonna log off the internet today. I've had enough. And I question if Springfield should have said anything, because at some point the Bible says not to answer to fools. Like, don't entertain them. If you're an idiot, no one needs to respond to you. We don't need to honor your statement with a full response. But apparently there was a lot of people who were like, hey, yo, like Springfield, what are you doing? And I almost feel like maybe they should have been like, well, it's not what you think. Like, stop. And I question the marketing altogether. Like, what's with the ad? Like, why? It's Echelon. Why are we starting with the ad? It doesn't make
I don't
sense.
get it.
That it made no sense, and I almost feel like it was baiting, like it was baiting people who their mind goes there. I'm not going to say they're a certain type of way, but I'm going to say their mind goes there, and that kind of shows some character flaw, if you ask me. But maybe you feel differently. Um, I thought it was silly. Do you feel like Springfield should have addressed that at all, or is it better just to let fools do what fools do?
Yeah, Springfield. Yeah, don't bring any extra light to it because it'll have like the Barbara Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Where the more you think about it or the more you try to combat it, it ends up making a bigger monster. The Like we saw the same thing from from 6 Hour, how they're constantly getting lawsuits for for
Mm-hmm.
the guns firing in the holster or not being drop safe, and you know some of that might the way that they're handling it is probably the best way they can, which is just, hey, let's just keep producing guns. Um, and so what ends up happening though is like the more you address it, the more negative light is going to come to it, and eventually you start you start bringing awareness of the problem to people that really weren't paying enough attention to actually know that this was even a problem. So I'm still running into people where like they still didn't know that the P320 had a drop safe issue to begin with ever. They just never knew because they're not gun guys. They're not in this community. They're not in this world. Um, so just the same way that Toyota has had a recall on brakes, so they just recalled the thing and it's over. Um,
Oh, they've
but
they've had so many recalls. I remember being like 16 or 17. I'm 29 now, and hearing, oh, they have a seatbelt recall or a brake recall where you hit the brakes and it gasses and people are rear-ending people. I'm like, okay, who's died? This is crazy.
yeah, yeah. So as far as the marketing goes, like why did they decide that for their marketing? I think it's the same thing that happens when um, if you've gone over to Thanksgiving dinner and you find out later that your auntie was mad because she didn't get an invitation, or you're out of town and then you come back in town and you have people hitting you up like, hey, why didn't you come visit me when you were in Nashville? Because I didn't think about it, man. I'm sorry. Right. Like, it's just, it wasn't like I was intentionally trying to slight a specific population. No, it just didn't come to mind because they don't think that way. It's not an everyday thing that's in the forefront of our lives like for the rest of us. So you know that they were they targeting us with the end thing. No, I don't think so. I think it was just a collection of white dudes that got around a table, and they figure, all right, this is probably going to look cool, so let's do it. No, the best marketing that I've seen from folks, and I think that marketing from the gun industry is going to head in a new direction. The marketing in the gun industry is way different than a lot of other marketing that you see for a lot of your other products, because the first and foremost place that they go for their marketing is YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they go. They send guns out to Hickok 45 and Demolition Ranch and TFB TV and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be, if you add all those up together to all the Echelon video, up all those views, I mean, you're probably going to come up to like a couple billion or a couple million views at least.
Right.
And those guys are going to tell their friends about, hey, have you heard about this new gun? They're going to be calling up the gun shows and the gun shops and stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you
The other
guys
thing
have
that they're
that in the
doing,
rental case? If you guys don't, well, we need it. And,
yeah. So the other thing is they're going to start sending it out to gun magazines. You'll see it in Recoil magazine. You'll see it in Concealed Carry magazine from the
mhm.
USCCA. You'll see it in all those. And as far as like making a video on their YouTube page, it's kind of a waste of time.
It really
Like,
is.
once,
Like they need to do a
yeah,
video just so people can see it if they go to their page, but they don't have to pour the same budget. All they have to do is make a small commercial, the same that they would put on literally anywhere. Like this is our Instagram video made for YouTube. Same thing,
yeah.
45 seconds.
Like 6 Hour, they put Phil Strader on for like 3 minutes, and he'll talk about all the features of the gun that they really want people to know about. And that's really, I mean, how long did that take? It probably took them 15 minutes of filming and, I don't know, 45 minutes of editing and, a little bit of distribution, and that's it. It probably cost like $10,000 or $12,000.
Right. They're not
You
really
really don't have to
boosting
do.
those posts or anything like that. And I tell you this, the videos that I'm most concerned about from SIG are when they go to SHOT Show or something and they catch up with James from TFB James, who is actually cooler in real life, by the way. I got a chance to meet him recently. He is hilarious, and he does wear shorts that are way too short for most people, but he's got the legs for it. So do what thou will. You know what I mean? And reason I bring that up is when James meets up with Phil Strader and they talk about something, I'm way more interested just because I like James's personality. And maybe somebody doesn't, but I do. And I think, okay, James is going to ask the questions that I would ask.
Yeah.
Like he's not gonna dress it up real nice. Yeah, he'll have a polite conversation, but he's gonna ask questions.
Yeah.
So then that's the direction I see this company going. Like my company, like Costly Media and Costly Conversations and Armed Atlas and whatnot. Like that's the way I see us going. Is when we go to these events, I want to at least grab somebody for 30, 45 seconds and ask them some hard questions. Not like combative, but ask them some good questions and maybe ask them something that the audience wants to know. So if you guys want that, make sure you're following on Armed Atlas. Shameless plug, but yes, I think the industry is going in a different direction than any other industry ever. Like the amount of influencers that will accept a free gun is ridiculous. And I mean, it's
You know,
$800 you don't have to
the,
spend, and it doesn't cost them that
sorry to
much.
cut you,
No, go ahead.
not
Go
to
ahead.
cut you off, but sometimes it may not even be the free gun. It might just be the ability to buy the gun at cost. And
Yes.
so
I mean, I've done
it
that.
doesn't have to be the free gun.
I've done that. And a lot of the time it's not a free gun. It's a gun that's going around. That's a review unit. And a lot of my guys who are serious in this space, like they have over 100,000 subscribers, not all the guns that they get to keep. Some of them come in, okay, yeah, this is a cool gun. All right, I'm going to send this back. Or once they get it, they can say, okay, I'll spend half, pretty much. That's kind of around what the industry cost is, either between 40 and 60% of the cost. It's not like, oh, $100 for the gun. No, it's not that. It's definitely not. So unless it's like a high point, then maybe it's like $50, which I still want a high point just for the memes, Anyways, this has been a really important conversation, I think, because I really wish Springfield would think about these things, because they're putting themselves in a dumb situation. But also I'm hopeful that this gun is successful in the sense that it actually performs, and it's not the same situation that we had previously with the Prodigy, where all the influencer guns seemed like they had been given a once over, just like, okay, this gun feels good, put it in the box, send it to influencer set A, and it either goes around or they get to keep it or whatever. But the gun runs great, and then we have an unfortunate number of not review units, but an unfortunate number of production units hitting the retail store, like retail units, that are having issues with functioning, feeding, Cerakote jobs are uneven, things that just, you can't have that on a $2,000 gun. Like, can't do that. I know it's not a staccato, but don't be the reason why staccato says, well, yeah, you should have bought a staccato. Like, that's not good. Well, you should have. I remember I was at a concert one time and I was trying to take a picture with an artist, and I tried to pull up my camera and my phone just like lagged out, completely froze up. And he's like, what is that? I was like, oh yeah, it's some Android. And he's like, oh, you should have had an iPhone. Like, he really roasted me like that. So
Oh man.
that's where I am. And by the way, somebody just said, I think PSA is doing the right now with the saber rifle. Okay. I gotta take a look at that. I've not really seen their saber rifles at all. I don't know how much of a rifle guy you are. I know you're big into handguns.
I haven't seen the saber rifle,
Yeah.
and I'll shoot rifles like for every, I don't know, for every 100 rounds of pistol, I might shoot like maybe like 1 or 2 rounds of rifle.
Hmm.
I'm not that huge of a rifle guy.
I mean, that, first of all, it's way more expensive to shoot rifle, anything, unless
Yeah.
it's like a 22 conversion kit or something like that. But even still, like, parts for rifles are generally way more expensive. Like, oh, I'm going to get a riser for my optic. Oh, it's $200. Why? Why? You just put the imagine buying an optics plate for $200. I'll throw away the gun. Like, here, guys, we're doing a giveaway, free gun. It's not worth it. Anyways, man, rifles make me so mad. But we're gonna start doing some rifle stuff. We're gonna get together with Rostic and Obsidian Tactics. I'm still running their rifle and or their upper, and everything's great, and I'm excited. But I know we're getting close to the time that we generally allot for the conversation. And one of the main things I really did want to talk about is you being a father and being a new father, which some of our listeners and guests and or listen, well, I guess they're family. Some of the family in the comment section was congratulating you on your new bundle of joy. So congratulations, my brother. Like, you have entered the realm of fatherhood. You have graduated. Welcome. It's the only thing I have you on is having older kids and more. Man, what's that like?
It, I love my mom, right? Uh, there's nothing I wouldn't do for her. I, you know, you do things for your mom, like, you help her pay for bills, or you come by and fix stuff around the house, or, have I gifted her guns before? Yeah, I've gifted her several. Um, I love my wife. I didn't know that I could love anything that much as when my son was born and I got to hold him for the first time. It was immediate, it was fast, and it was intense. And there's like, I can have the worst day at work. Like I could have a day where, man, I thought today I was going to get fired. I can have that kind of day. I could have a day where it was just busting my butt. Or I can have a day where you're out on the range for, like, I don't know, 12, 14, 15 hours, um, and just out there working or teaching or stuff, and you could be drained. And then you come home and you see that kid, and it just makes it all worth it. It's it's a feeling that's super hard to describe, but man, like, every father out there gets it. There is nothing I wouldn't do for that kid. If he needed my right arm, I'd give it to him. Not a second's hesitation. So it's a whole new world, man. It actually made me kind of wonder why I it's hard for me to wonder that now, because I don't think I was going to be as emotionally and financially ready for it if I did earlier in life. But
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm I'm glad I'm having a kid now, and I'm glad I'm having it with my wife, with a woman that I love, and it's just nice, man.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear you articulate these things, and I know it's still so new. And the truth is, almost 4 years in for myself, there are days that are rough, and people are talking back, and there's a moment that happens where you have a three-nager, and they're saying something super sassy and kind of like, yo, that's rude. I should not put up with that, because if I put up with that, like, what's going to happen. Like, they're going to keep doing that. But,
Yeah.
like, you can't just help but smile. Like, oh, you really said that? That's so, oh my gosh, that's so rude. And you just kind of laugh to yourself. And you're like, no, don't laugh. Don't love this moment. No, don't say that. Bad. And you don't want to do that. Like, there's something in you, and maybe that's just my temperament, right? But there's something in you that loves even the bad moments. And yes, there's some moments that are like truly awful. And for me and my wife, we, after it's over, we sit back and we say, like, hey, you know what? Like, even the bad moments are worth it, because, like, we could not have her. There are evil people in the world, and there are tragic events, like life-changing events that occur every day to good people. And the fact that, she's here right now, and we have to put up with all the crap to get to the good moments. Can we skip to the good part? Like, it's okay. Like, we can deal with it, because, She's perfectly imperfect. Like, she loves to dance and she loves to laugh and she's so corny. Where did she get that? Like, oh my gosh. Like, stop hanging out with my wife. Golly. But, and like, it's just, and then the younger one, like, we've been on a dancing kick like lately. Like, I put on like praise break music, and it was like so perfect. I don't even really appreciate that music like that. Like, but I just did it just to see what would happen, and they started just doing the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like the human experience. It was perfect. Like, just put a church outfit on him. Like, and I'm saying all that because I'm appreciating this moment with you, and I will ask you this. You know, I don't want you to go into like John Wick puppy mode, but like, as somebody who's trained a hell of a lot with firearms, and you know that's been part of who you are. Like, it's like actually a part of your identity. Like, if you, whether you want to believe it or not, whether that's a healthy thing or not, like it is part of who you are. Part of it. You know, it's deeper than that, but it is part of who you are. Does that in any way impact the way you parent, in the way that you see your children, in the way that you train? Like, how do those things speak to each other in a positive way, rather?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. So one of the things that really kind of helped me out with training, as far as going to classes, teaching classes, attending classes, is that you end up starting to build a tribe. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
you find yourself inside of a community of people that are very much like-minded and that have similar goals and aspirations. And so you can bounce ideas off of them, and you can ask them for, um, help to figure out problems. And also you can ask them to, for sometimes, if you need it, even some emotional support. So, you know, the thing is though, as an instructor and as an armed citizen and also as a former Marine, I have to, I have to be aware of the dangers that are out there for, against my family. Um, there's there's continuing education. There's things that I continue to research. There's still crime data. There's still, video footage, and people do very, very terrible things to people. Um, doesn't matter how great of a person you are, or uh, whether or not you had it coming to you or anything like that. Um, there's still very, very bad people out there. There's still psychopaths and uh, people out there that will do some terrible, terrible things to your people, to your family. The first time I ever heard about something like this was I went to a Tom Givens class, and he talked about the Pettit murders, Petit, the Pettit murders. You can even read up about it on Wikipedia. There's a Wikipedia article, and the stuff that those two psychopaths did to their family is absolutely appalling. It'll make you lose sleep at night. So yeah, like
wow.
it's bad. So I'm not really going to go into it because even talking about it can be traumatizing to some of your viewers.
Yeah.
It could be traumatizing. So, and it could be a trigger thing too. It could be a trigger for
Sure.
people
Well,
who have gone through something like that. So, um, but you know, to understand that there's that kind of evil out there, the kind of evil that you can never put your mind into. Would like there would never be a world where, you know, Aaron would actually do any of the stuff that these people did, and those are the people that we know about, that
yeah.
they revealed themselves, Um, so what it does is it drives me more to upgrade my software, probably even more than I upgrade, all the hardware. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah,
That's perfect. That's such a perfect way to say that. And I hate to ruin it by pointing out how perfect the statement was. I'll tell you how being a father has impacted my training and impacted my instincts even. Somebody was kind of going on a rant about like masculinity and how we have kind of a perverted view of it at times, which at times, but my, they said something about how, oh, dads expect to get the biggest plate because not because they really did anything, but because they went to work all day and they came back and they're expected to, this was maybe kind of a derogatory way of saying what they were saying, but they're expected to go basically fight the monsters in the dark, and that gives them the right. And I don't I don't view myself that way. Like, okay, yeah, I went to work. I don't feel like I work as hard as a lot of guys out there. Just you see construction workers just busting their butt in the sun, and you're like, I was in the sun for 5 minutes and I want to die. Sir, you can have the biggest piece of meat. You got this. Like I'm not going to say anything to you, but I look at myself and I say, well, reality is I don't expect an award for this, because this is the job. But you call me anytime you think there's a monster in the dark, whether it's there or not. And it better not be there when I get there. I'll tell you that, because I can't help you. Like I tell people all the time, like, if you ever find my address, don't show up to my house. Like I'm asking you so nicely, do not do that. And do not make me feel in any way that the family's in danger, because I can't help you at that point. I'm helping you right now. I can't help you if you do something stupid like that.
Yeah.
Like you pushed all your chips in. You really want to bet like that? You want to play with your life? Like, don't do that. And this is not a threat, but I'm making some really strong promises that, like, it's not going to go the way any of us wants it to go. And so, point being, is I'll be that guy. I'll go in the dark, and I'm not saying that to say I'm on some sort of power fantasy. And I think a lot of anti-gunners think that getting a gun or watching movies that are have strong, like, male, masculine, or have a lot of, like, guns or action energy put you on some sort of power fantasy. And that may be true for some people, but for me, it's not about that at all. I know where I'm deficient, but I know where I'm good, and I know what I can do. And to the monsters in the dark, don't be there when I get there. That's just it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quick, in the comment section, my guy, he said, my son's joy trumps anyone else's joy, and that's been since day one. It's a different kind of love.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it really is. Regarding your son and being a father, I know you said it's made you maybe care a little bit less about the hardware. Yeah, maybe you're not going out here and buying this and that, and now you got to get less about the stuff and more about the soft skills, more about the software rather. I guess, is there any way that kind of being a gun owner and somebody who's so, like, very trained in this thing that we do, that's maybe been kind of negative or maybe frustrating? And I don't know if there's an answer to that, but in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe you feel like you're a little bit more paranoid than you want to be, just because the exposure, the ignorance would have been bliss. That's where my mind goes. Is there any way that you feel like it's kind of like, okay, because of this firearms skill and knowledge, there's been some frustration. Maybe I'm training too much and it's taking away from my kids. I don't know. Where are you with that?
I've had those thoughts. I still have those thoughts. Every time I leave the house to go to the range and either teach a class or take a class or go to a match, there's always those thoughts that, I could be spending that time with my wife and my son, and if that's the case, then I would never leave the house. Just quit your job and stay home. Or find a job that, you can work from home, and instead of working, you could just spend all that time with your wife and your kid. And, at some point you need to leave the house and actually do the things that your wife and kid are expecting you to do.
Yeah.
You need to go out and bring home bacon. You need to, get the skills that you need to prepare for a home invasion or, a street robbery or a carjacking or, an active shooter event or anything like that. You need those skills. You need those skills. Or you need to, go out there and earn enough cash to where you can afford a backup generator, or, you can afford like some backup food or some backup water. You gotta be able to afford that stuff. because when the grid goes down or when the flag goes up or whenever anything happens, you're going to be that guy. And you're going to hate the fact that you didn't prepare for that.
Mm.
And in that moment, there's nothing that you can do. Um, and so the main thing that really kind of drove me was, I might be oversharing at this point, but there was a night back in, I think it was 2012. It was 2012. No, wait. I think it was 2014. It was 2014. It was March of 2014. Um, I didn't know this at the time, but there were there were drug dealers living next door,
Mm.
and you don't live that life very long before you end up encountering some violence. And so next door there was some shooting. It sounded like it was in my front yard, and I didn't know if it was a drive by or some dudes just got drunk and or high or whatever and just started busting out shots. I didn't know what was going on. Had no idea.
Mm.
And all I know is this was before I met my wife. This was before I had my son. But there I was, Marine Corps veteran, right? Utterly unprepared for the situation. Nothing in my training had ever taught me this. So I was hiding under the bed with my Beretta in one hand and my phone in the other. And I pick up my cell phone and I call 911 and I get a busy signal. I get a
Wow.
busy signal when I call 911. And that just kind of nailed down into me. There is no one else. There's no one else that's going to be there to protect me or to protect my family, protect my son. It's just all up to me. So I need to have those skills. I need to have the awareness. I need to understand attack cues. I need to understand, less lethal techniques. I need to understand de-escalation. I need to understand, vehicle close combat. I need to understand, emergency procedures. I need to understand legal. I need to understand medical. I need to understand, um, just verbal judo, de-escalation. I need to understand those things. And so, because it's not going to be anyone else, it's just going to be me. It's going to be me
Yeah.
that's going to be responsible for. And I've worked all these scenarios out in my head as well. Like, is there ever going to be a world where my wife and my kid are better off without me there in a certain situation? And man, I can't think of one. I really can't. So now there is a difference, right? Like you, there is that thing, right? Like actually preparing for the worst day of your life. There is that, or the worst week of your life, or whatever else have you. Um, but there's also an opportunity for you to actually go out there and interact with other guys, other people in your tribe, other fathers, and other shooters that you know uh, that believe the same things as you do, that have the same goals as you do, and that ends up recharging my batteries a very fair amount to where I can go back to work and I can continue to do the stuff that brings home bacon. So, um, there has to be a balance. I think some people can go so deep into this thing that they may be literally taking food away from your baby's mouth, and
Hmm.
like maybe you don't need that fifth staccato. Maybe instead you need to get a high chair for your kid, or maybe you need to get a better baby seat. You know, there's things like that. Um,
Yeah. Shoot, a good baby
you know,
seat's 250. Yeah.
oh man, that's the
I'm sure
low
there's
end.
more. I'm sure there's way more expensive ones, but like, you're
Yeah.
right.
So,
And
but there
and
is such a thing that
yeah,
I've seen guys in the space that that ruined their marriages because they were training so much, they were shooting so much. I've seen folks where it's damaged the relationship that they have with their kids. So I just and it sucks. Like particularly for firearms instructors, it's really hard for those guys for as firearms instructors because a lot of the classes that we teach are on Saturdays and Sundays. Well, when
hmm
are those soccer matches going to go?
hmm
They're going to be on Saturdays and Sundays. When are those football matches going to go? You know, like when is the most time you're going to have? Like if you could pick a day on the calendar where you can actually spend an uninterrupted 8 hours with your kid, when's the most likely is that going to be? Is that going to be during the week or is it going to be on the weekend? And,
absolutely.
and if you say no to that, instead of instead of spending time with your family. There's only going to be so many of those you can string together in a row before you can start doing some damage you can't repair.
Yeah.
So
That's in the corporate world. You start getting written up. You get your verbal, you get your first
yeah,
written,
yeah,
and then you get your second written, and then you get your final. What's after that?
yeah. My
And so,
my only saving grace is that I found myself a queen that she understands what I'm doing and why I'm doing it,
mhm.
and she also understands that if for any reason I don't even know I don't even have to know the reason. If for any reason she needed me to stop all this, if she just needed me to quit, then I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, yeah. That's that's the most important thing. Not to talk about people's stupid Hollywood drama recently, and this is a lesson on communication and expectations and setting expectations. Recently, guy named Jonah Hill came out that some ex girlfriend of his was mad or really, I guess she experienced some form of trauma. And I'm not trying to make fun of her, but she experienced something, and she was sharing, maybe inappropriately sharing that. I guess after they started dating, he switched up on her and said like, "Hey, I need you to take down your swimsuit pictures, nothing revealing. Stop hanging out with these guys. Stop hanging out with your trashy friends. All these things." I mean, and then he said at the end of the message that she revealed, "You can keep doing these things, but if so, I'm going to release you to do that. I'm not going to force you to stay with me." Um, which, okay. And my biggest takeaway from that, I don't have some sort of big, thesis to say, but my biggest takeaway from that is the communication in the relationship at the beginning, the expectations, and the expectations at the end were vastly different. It had to be. I mean, if you have some sort of coming to Jesus salvation moment where, oh, now you have these morals and values that are incongruent, okay, well then you need to just, you know. But what I'm relating this to what you're saying in this regard. There's an expectation and an understanding that you both have, and the expectation is she knows exactly what you need to do, and she trusts you. There's trust. She trusts you to not take advantage of that agreement. You're not just going to spend an additional day that you don't need to. Not that you don't have the freedom to maybe to take a day, but you're not going to say, okay, well, I'm frustrated with you. I'm just going to spend all day at the range, even though I really only planned on spending 2 hours, which is the temptation. I get it. But that's where the trust comes in, the trust and expectations, right? And when you look and you say like, oh, shoot, wives are mad because this and this and that. And, people are going to say, well, women, right? I'm like, yeah, but no, like the expectations.
Yeah.
Was it set? And do we still have that trust? Does she trust you to do the right thing no matter what? And if so, I believe in your situation where it seems like your lady is just really solid and not just, floating in the wind, whatever that means. I respect that you said what you said. And I hope that we can all find something like that or take what we have and build in the direction that says like, hey, do you trust me? And if not, like, let's build some trust so that I can do what I need to do. I'm not going to take advantage. Not going to, see the inch and take my mile. I'm going to do what I have to do. And I'm going to be here for my family when I can, and for me, the hardest thing for me is a lot of the work that I do is on the phone. It's posting, it's
Yeah.
thinking of this, what's the right caption? Let me look through the old gallery, see if there's something old that I never really posted, because I don't feel like going and making new content right now. And does that take up family time? The answer is yes, it does. And I'm trying to find ways to adjust that and to be receptive, even though I can be a little prideful at times, and to accept and understand that, like, hey, like, we can wake up an hour earlier and address these things, or, we can carve out this time, set the expectation, say like, okay, from this time to this time, I need this time, and the other times, and I'm saying I'm oversharing, I am oversharing, but I'm hoping that people can understand, like, this is hard, you know,
Yeah.
it's hard to be a professional, it's hard to be a man, it's hard to be anyone trying to do a thing, you know, and
Yeah.
I've been going on for a minute, and I really want to just say I appreciate you coming on and sharing that vulnerable moment you had several years back. I know you didn't have to share that, and I hope that people cannot see that as just some fearful moment, but like a moment that you took that to heart and you learned from it, and you said like, okay, I understand now. This is my motivation. This is my driving factor. I've been in this situation, and I've been in a similar situation. There was no gunshots fired, and I think you heard about it, but I realized that, man, people are far away, and you might not be able to dial 911 before things start popping off. And at that point, no one's going to hear you scream. So,
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've heard like there are some 911 calls that you listen to as an instructor, and, like in some of these classes. And the good guy does not always win.
no.
The only thing that 911 can do is, they can log the report, they can get people there, and they're going to be running red lights trying to get there in time. But they're not going to get there in time. They're not. You gotta take care of it yourself. You're on
Mhm.
your own.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I've had some security training, and I don't think you need any sort of certification to look at the times and say like, okay, well, if I'm in a self-defense situation, or if I'm in like a in defense of others situation, because that's what security generally is, between the times that the incident starts and ends, it's 5 and 10 minutes. So can you survive long enough for somebody to actually hit send on that call, communicate the information, and then have those guys who are 5 to 10 minutes away, hopefully they're that far away and they can actually respond. Because guess what? If it's Snowmageddon, if there's any sort of social unrest, because I mean that doesn't happen here in America, but social unrest, it could happen, right? Potentially. Um, if half the city's on fire because there's competing forces, like literally setting the city on fire, like literally, they're not coming for you. I am sorry, and I hate that. I hate that the conversation's kind of like a little bit fear mongery. But I think we're trying to paint some reality. Like, you got to have a tool or a plan, and if your plan fails, okay, at least you had a plan. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
anything that you'd like to share, or at least like to let people know what you're doing, where you are? Or maybe there's something else on your chest that you just really wanted to get off.
Let's see. Yeah, there's some. If you don't mind me plugging some things,
I
but
want you to plug everything. You take them. You have 5 minutes to plug whatever you want.
okay. Um, Look, I as far as preparing for the worst day of your life, look, like shooting is fun, right? But uh, it's more fun if you're good at it. And so I think a lot of people, what ends up happening is, and I know that because I was there too. I was there. I When I first started carrying, I had a lot of unrealistic ideas of what violent crime looks like, and I also didn't have any idea of what skills would be required to survive situations like that. So I highly encourage people to go get training. You don't have to train with me, but you know, find someone, vet them, and understand if their knowledge base is congruent with your goals and where you are. If you're a 65-year-old empty nester and you and your wife live at home, and the neighborhood's just gotten bad and you're concerned, maybe the best person for you to see is not a Navy SEAL. Maybe you just need someone else that also knows some things. Okay. Maybe they don't have to be a military veteran or a law enforcement veteran. They could just be someone that knows how to teach you how to accomplish your goals. They don't have to be a USPSA veteran, a USPSA GM, or anything like that. It just needs to be someone that knows how to communicate properly to you what those goals are. So, or how to transfer those skills to you so that you can meet your goals. So, here in Memphis, Tennessee, we have Top Gun Memphis. That's where I teach. That's where I do a lot of my private lessons and where I teach a lot of my uh, art classes. We do a lot of private lessons. We do a lot of um, we do a ton of permits. But the thing that breaks my heart is that a lot of people get their permit and then they just don't come back. That's the thing that breaks my heart because you know we see the permit class itself as kindergarten. That's where you start off. And so that's not exactly, that's not the end all be all. You need to continue that education. You need to hone your skills, sharpen that edge. You don't have to take every class we have, but you need to be proficient because, especially if you're going to be out there in public around me and my family, I'm going to need you to know what the hell you're doing. So go get training. Come to Top Gun Memphis. We have a barbecue restaurant in the building. If you're in Memphis, Tennessee, then you need something like that to get people to come in and train. You kind of do. Um, Also, in the same building, we talked about stippling, and most of my work guns and my gun for play, most of those are laser stippled. When that's done by Mid South Laser Engraving. Talk to Eric Hash. Talk to Eric Hash and let him know I sent you. Also, I was hoping for a little bit of time to plug something. Um,
Hit it.
when you're at home and you're dry practicing, I think the safest thing that you could possibly use in order for you to help you dry practice is this thing right here, and it's called a barrel block. And what it does is it's a little bitty plastic attachment that all you do is you slip this into the chamber of your firearm. You slip it down the barrel, and what this does is it'll actually block the chamber, and it keeps that gun from being loaded with any actual real ammunition. Also, what it does is it'll be a visual indicator for everyone else in your house that they have the peace of mind of knowing that my guns are clear. And so when I'm practicing, and a lot of my practice is very dynamic, what this does is it took a fully functional firearm and it transformed it into an inert training tool. I basically see this as the same thing. A gun with one of these in it is essentially the same thing as a blue gun. Like I've even done force on force with these things. So it's a great peace of mind for you and your family, especially when you're dry practicing, especially if they've experienced some trauma with firearms. And so if seeing a firearm or being in the same room as a firearm is a problem, this right here can help you out. And so you can use this coupon code. This right here is Memphis 2022. Let me shine it at the camera. If you go to blocksafety.com and you use this coupon code, you will get 15% off your entire order. And that's on everything on the website. And I don't even get paid for this. I don't. My payment is that you don't cook off a round into your living room, and that's enough payment for me. I'm good with that. So there's that. And what else? Um, yeah. If you don't have any classes near you, or if you don't have any like matches near you or anything like that, there's other resources you can use. You can read books. You can have virtual training where you can have like a camera, like you can use it on your phone or on your laptop, and it'll be a camera of an instructor, or you can use like video based learning, and you can even learn. You can even use books. Um, like this one that I'm going through again for like the seventh or eighth time. This one right here is called a concealed carry class. This is made by Tom Givens. Tom Givens has had almost 70 students that have survived deadly encounters using their handgun. Almost 70 students that have had to draw their gun in self-defense. And so, you want to train from a dude like that. That's pretty cool for self-defense. So, you know, stuff like that is really cool. But yeah, just and then also some of my own personal endeavors. There's the Everyday Conversations podcast that I have on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. there's my YouTube channel. There's Memphis Beach, and soon, very soon, I'm going to be starting up my website, and that'll be memphisbeach.com, where I'll post. Uh, there'll be opportunities for you to train with me and to take private lessons from me. Some of those even virtual private lessons. So that's what
Excellent.
we have.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to share. And obviously you're on YouTube under at Memphis Beach. How do you spell that? Memphis, like just how you spell Memphis, and then is it beach as in BECH or BEA? What is that?
Yeah, BEECH, like beechwood or beech nut.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess next time you come on the show, we're gonna get into why it's called Memphis Beach versus just Memphis. Maybe I'm just completely missing the pun.
Oh no, it's my last name is Beach. My real name is Mikos Beach. It's kind of
Heck
a
of a
weird
name.
name.
Heck of a
Yeah,
name. No one's gonna forget
it's
that.
yeah, and it's pretty weird. Sometimes people do forget it because it's different. So if they do forget it, or if they get self conscious about it, they just call me Memphis. That's where I'm from.
There you go. Well, that's perfect. Man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really hope that people go and take a look at your robust library of really informative videos. I think you put a lot of work into what you do and the information you share. Sometimes I look at my content and I'm just like, man, I got to share as much information as Memphis loads into his videos. I got to find a way to do it because it's just like meaty and not boring meaty, but just like there's a lot to get through. And I think you break it down in a way that I'll put it this way. Good teachers take complicated stuff and make it simple. I know there's a better way to say that, but whatever. Guys, thank you so much for being here. If you have been a fan of what we've been doing for a long time, there's two major ways to support what we do. Number one is to join on the Patreon, patreon.com/armedatlas. There's different memberships. There's one that's like $5 to join, and I'll let you in this secret Discord group. I'm not going to tell anyone. Or if you want to join, I think there's a $12 version, which really every dollar that you guys throw into this thing, there's guys who really have been supporting for a long, long time. I'm not sure why, but I really appreciate them for being here. Thank you guys if you're in here, and thank you, Memphis, for supporting as well. And the point being is you can support there financially, or you can support on the Armed Atlas YouTube. That one's monetized at a point where you can become a member. You can become a channel member. $2 a month for the tip jar, and if you want to become like a premium member, it's $10 on the Armed Atlas YouTube channel. And I'll let you in the secret Discord group, and I'll let you get access to some of this stuff, early access, let you guys know who we're talking to, show you guys some of the pictures that we do behind the scenes. It's nothing crazy, but if you really like the work, maybe that's something you want to do. If not, just keep watching and sharing and supporting that way. That also means so much. Honestly, and I'll put it this way, money is great, but one of the best things you can do is to take this thing and share it on your Instagram, share it on your Facebook, maybe even make like a whole post talking about an idea or a concept that you found to be intriguing or exciting. Like if there's something here that you're just like, oh yeah, preach, like go ahead and just talk about it. Let people know what you're watching or listening to. Word of mouth is our best friend, because the tech overlords do not like us because we're talking about guns in such a positive way. And I think with Costly Conversations and the Armed Atlas YouTube channel and just the whole thing that we do, we're changing the way we talk about guns in America and the world. And this has been one of the coolest jobs I could ever ask for. Special thank you to Memphis Beach, my guy Mikos, for coming on the show and sharing for, God dang it, it's been 2 hours. Normally it was just an hour and a half. Thank you, sir, for allowing us to take time away from your family. I know they cannot hear you, but you're still on the show. Thank you. Guys, thank you so much. I know there's something I'm missing. This is good. If you're here this long, you found out before many other people have. Some people know. Mike from Tactical Considerations, big YouTube channel, big guy. He's huge. Like he's this massive man. And he's such a cool dude. We were just having a conversation a few weeks back, and where I was like, "Hey man, you want to come on the show?" And he was like, "Yeah." So he's coming on next week. So make sure you're here for that, so you can ask him questions live if you're interested in asking him questions live. If you're not interested in asking him questions, that's cool too. Just tune in and enjoy what we have to say as we kind of chop it up and figure out life and how to live it abundantly. Until next time, keep it costly.